Collaboration Podcast.
Hey, this is Josh Pearson.
Performance specialist with The Complete Athlete.
This is Cole Warren.
Certified USAPL club coach and owner of Salutum Health and Performance. Each week, Cole and Josh will take you through training techniques and tips, talk to athletes and fitness professionals to educate and motivate you for your fitness goals. Plus, you'll follow the journeys of Team Salutum Powerlifting and Get Complete Athletes. The Coaches Collaboration Podcast is brought to you by The Complete Athlete, providing world-class continuing education for fitness trainers, coaches, and gyms, specializing in Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, strongman, barbell and hip classes, personal programming, specialty clinics, competitions, strength and conditioning. Get Complete. Isn't it time to take your coaching to the next level? Using continuing education with research and evidence-based info and offering specialty services from a team of certified coaches online and on-site. It's time to Get Complete. The Complete Athlete, online at getcomplete.net. And now, the Coaches Collaboration Podcast. The turd face, he's not here today.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We're recording.
We
I totally
are.
forgot.
Yeah. We don't have to. I'm not worried about that. But
I was just shooting the shit. Yeah, he's not here today because we killed him.
Yes.
Because I'm
you
sick
ran
of
him
his
over
bullshit.
with your little bean on wheels of a car.
I had 4 athletes come up to me all concerned, and they were like, "Josh, is there something you need to tell me?" No. How are you doing? I'm doing fine. What's going on? Well, I listened to the podcast. Yeah. Cole was saying that you were kicked off the podcast. Are you okay? And I looked at him just deer in the headlights. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Listen to the next episode. I'm back. Okay. It's only kicked off for 5 seconds.
So Nick
Mm-hmm.
and Teresa Zimmerman,
Mm-hmm.
right? Teresa Zimmerman. She messages me as a DM on Instagram. Hey, can I ask you a question? And I'm like,
Oh shit.
I go, absolutely, or something like that. I can't remember how it went down, but she goes, so, what kind of shit went down? And I go, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, what kind of shit went down that Josh isn't on the podcast anymore?
Mm-hmm. That's
And
hilarious.
I am literally pissing my pants at this point because
Just
I'm just like,
dying.
"Brr."
You guys are
'cause I
so
guess
evil.
He listened to it. It was like a little gossip ring. It was amazing.
Right.
He listened to it and was like, shit, you got to listen. Something went down.
Oh
and so
my
she listened.
God.
She's like, oh my God, what happened? And I'm like, this is brilliant.
To all the listeners, nothing happened.
She was one of 4 different
Yeah,
people
that's
that
insane.
came out to me and were like, dude, so, and they were real quiet about it. Like
Right.
it was supposed to be like super touchy. Like, so, I mean, like,
On the
what
down
happened?
low.
And I'm just over there going,
Josh had way too much coffee one day and started pissing all over the studio. So we told him to leave.
oh man. Yeah, no, so I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't even know,
That's
Cole had
terrible.
mentioned it and then I didn't sit in on his take
Oh,
on Tuesday
okay.
that
So it was
day.
just him spitting, huh?
Oh,
I didn't
wasn't
even listen to
there.
it.
Yeah,
Fuck
I
you,
wasn't even
Cole.
there. And so, because he came in, our schedules have been so crappy.
Yeah, he came in on like a
Tuesday
or a Wednesday.
and so I was
yeah.
on the air on Wild Country 99, and so I just set him up and walked away. And
Shameless plug right there.
Oh, sorry
I was
about
on
that.
the air with Wild Country 99. Tune in. You know,
Oh, okay.
98.9 FM in the St. Cloud area.
Also have a great app. Anyway,
Bam. You can listen to it all over
Anywhere.
the world.
you can listen to it anywhere on any device,
Ba-bam.
anytime.
Hashtag
No, but
Wild Country
He,
99.
he was so funny because he had to sit in here all by himself, and he's like, "That was so weird.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody there." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, no hype squad for you, no nothing." But he did good. So, but no, this weekend it's just us because Cole is actually at regionals going on, USA Powerlifting Regionals. Yesterday was a huge day. One of our Team Salutum Powerlifting, a couple of them actually pulled out some big
Desi,
wins.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Desi took first. Did you see? Caitlin and Jeff did awesome. Jeff took first. Caitlin took second.
Congrats, guys. That was Kate's
know.
second meet.
Yeah, like she's
great.
super rookie, and I'm loving the fact that I want to be like, look at you, 2 twinsy medals,
Yeah.
because they're getting married in September.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones who sent the envelope for
that's
Mr.
right.
Cole Warren and Mrs. Brooke Stevens. And my
That's
husband's
right.
like, what the fuck?
What the fuck was this? I love
I
that.
was like, yeah.
Like I said on the last podcast, thank you so much, Kate.
Yeah. So we get to have a little bit of a different perspective. Next cast, I guarantee it's going to be a full recap of regionals. And the nice thing about regionals is it's a launching point for Raw Nationals.
Yeah.
Raw Nationals just sent out their volunteer list and everything else. And I think I'm going to bite the bullet, pick a couple days, probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to volunteer to be on the commentating for the YouTube
Oh,
feed.
yeah.
I know.
That'll be sweet.
I've never been so nervous about something in all my life. I do this for a
Why?
living,
Yeah.
but it just
Why?
totally makes me, well, because it's,
Live is lives. I mean,
I
you're
know.
passionate about what you're talking about, but
Right.
you're passionate on the
but
radio
I
too.
also realize it's going to be a lot of work because
Oh, yeah.
I have a lot of learning to do because I don't want to get up
Plus,
there
you
and
got to
just
keep
sound
up
like
with
an
all the
idiot.
comments coming in too, and talk with
and
the
I told Cole, I said, if this happens and I get to do this, I will be like the Devil Wears Prada with my notebook of lifters where I can literally go and look up, because there's nothing worse than being the girl who's like, look at that blue suit. And that's all you have to say.
Right.
So I'm like, little homework needed.
Yeah,
but
that's for
Elliot
sure.
Feldman out of PA, he's one of the big guys in USA powerlifting. He does a lot of it. So
And he knows everybody.
he does.
A little bit about everybody. Yeah.
Well, and he just, I enjoy listening to him because of the fact that he does. Like, he has those little, it's like when like the family gets together and everybody starts telling stories. He's always got a great story. So I feel like if I'm lucky enough to get in the booth with him, I can learn a lot from him too. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. But and he might actually be on the cast. We were gonna do one of those like super early Raw Nationals
Yeah,
previews.
in like September. That would be awesome.
And actually, we were thinking about doing one here July, August, like super early,
like,
to look for the Outstanders now, and then do like a repeat.
Do it before I'm in
closer.
Aruba. Please let me sit in on
God,
this.
please don't let you get deported.
Don't set it up when I'm in Aruba, because I will Skype you and just talk shit the whole time. Like, fuck you guys doing this when I'm not there. How dare you?
It's gonna be brilliant. I'm excited about it. But yeah. So I think today, I know you wanted to talk more about like setting up your program and finding kind of that niche, whether it's on a nutrition side or whether it's adding in other things. It wasn't going to be just strictly like, let's talk about a squat today.
Right. Yeah. How to add things into your current program. That's huge for a lot of people, because a lot of people just say, oh yeah, I'm going to add farmer carries and just go for it. You know, and
Right.
they don't even think about what it's going to do to their program. Or when it comes to cardio, some people are like, you know what I'm going to do? 17 days a week. Fuck it. You know? They just go completely apeshit. So
And then they wonder why their lifts are hurting.
right, or they're hurting, or they're getting injured, or they're not sleeping well, or whatever's going on, or they're losing weight and they're not trying to. Also, when you're trying to lose weight, a lot of times people think, oh, I'll just cut just a ton of weight right at the end, and that's the worst time to do it. And yeah, I just want to get into that a little bit. Plus, I was talking to you about the cardio thing, and so we'll use you as an example, and it'll be great. So what have you been doing with your cardio, Brooke?
About that.
Have you been doing your cardio?
You know, I had an epiphany this morning. I have those a lot. It's funny how when you get into a quiet moment in your day randomly, your mind will clear, and sometimes something that's been weighing on you will just kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And that happens it's not just with lifting, it's with everything. And
Subconscious is always working.
yeah, it's weird, you know, and I had this strange moment, and you're probably going to laugh about it because this is how my brain works and it's why I'm crazy. But
This is the only reason?
well, one of them.
Okay.
I've always been extremely connected to music ever since I was little, right? Music is just like, I'm one of those people that can hear a song and I like More Than Words from Extreme came on and it'll blast me back to 1995, summer with my friend at the pool, listening to it through the tinny speakers from XL93 because we were only... we were what, 14 maybe at the time, 94, 93-ish. And we would always take...
You mean when I was 2?
I was going to say, or non-existent. No. But we would always ride the bus with the park board during the summer. Every day we spent at the pool. And I can remember the smell of like the hot concrete and the chlorine. Like music just does this really strange thing for me where it literally, it
brings you back.
Me,
for a lot of
right?
people, it's smell, but yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of all works together. And it's probably one of the reasons I'm such a highly emotional person because things will just zap me. So Charlie, my husband, is in Alaska this week, and I'm single parenting. I grew up with a single parent mom, and it was weird because I threw on my Monster Ballads 80s, like hair ballads, right, while I was getting up, cleaning the house, and I had this strange, empowering moment where I started to realize what is fueling my strength to get up and do things. Yeah. And it's funny how we find our strength in different areas. Like I immediately, when I was listening to this stuff, was blasted back to when I was like 15, 16, and I used to babysit for a couple different single moms. And I used to look up to them so much at how much they would, you know, they're going to college, they're working at night, and that's why I'm babysitting, and they have these kids and they're still getting up and they're getting it done. And I kind of had that moment this morning where I was like, dude, there's no reason to sit back and be lazy. Like you can get up, you can get it done. Like my house is clean. My kid had a great breakfast. You know, the parenting still happened. And I started to think about how that kind of ties into my lifting. I mean,
I'm a pretty independent person, and we all know we can post as many memes as we want about saying, hey, don't expect it without the hard work. And you know that. Like, we know that. It's not going to happen if you don't do the work. But sometimes we need to find where we're really going to pull that, okay, I need to get my ass off a couch. Okay, I really need to rearrange my schedule. Yeah, this is going to suck, but I need to do it. And how we get out of that zone. And I overindulged on that a little bit with this just overly structured system that I had back when I did an initial huge weight loss. And I was an endorser, and every week it was, here's how much weight I lost. And I got so mentally burnt out on it that I told myself I didn't need any of that anymore. And I kind of came to a conclusion this morning. I'm like, oh, but I do. And
it helps motivate you.
It does. And so I was totally thinking, I'm stuck in that super heavyweight position where I want to be stronger. Keto worked amazing for me. I lost a ton of weight on it. A ton of body fat on it is actually what I lost. But I also lost some muscle, and my strength plateaued. And if it was growing so exponentially slow, it was almost demotivating. Like, I'm like, why am I not pulling the way I used to pull? Or, what's not happening here? So I'm stuck in that, okay, I really want to lose weight, but I really want to get strong. And I think that everybody tells you the same thing. Always. Well, you can't get stronger if you're going to lose weight, and vice versa. And I'm like, that can't be true. There's got to be a way to do it, even if it's a little bit slower. There's got to be a way to still be able to make my gains, to still get my lifts to get stronger, but for me to not be as heavy. And now that we're doing IPF points too, let's be real, the leaner you can be in your weight class, the better it is for you.
Right, yeah. Pound for pound.
So I get that mass moves mass, but I don't feel like I need to be, I'm not looking to put more fat on. I need to get rid of some of this fat. And so I had reached out to you and I was like, hey, I really need to start adding some cardio things. I can't run right now. I'm at 324. And, when I started this journey, I was like 345.
Yep.
I cannot run until I get down to at least 295, 290.
Okay.
I have to get under 300 before I can run because it's just too hard on my joints.
So I have to ask, why do you have to run at all?
I love it.
Okay.
Like I used to run intervals on the treadmill, and people would think I'm crazy, but you put a good set of tunes in your ears and you run your 30 to 40 seconds on and you take your 20 seconds off. You get it done in 10 minutes.
Right.
And it's brilliant. I love any of that high, if I can get done with my cardio and it's not steady state for 45 minutes, I'm totally happy with cardio.
From a fat loss standpoint, that's so much better for you anyway. The lowest intensity stuff. So if we want to change your body, we need to make sure that we're challenging it in some way. Anybody can walk for 10 miles. You might be sore the next day, but you can do it, right? So your body has no issue with walking 10 miles. So why would it even care if, oh yeah, it was kind of hard, but so what? But when you do those intervals, it's actually a challenge. You're actually pushing it, and your body's like, holy shit, if I, let's say, increased my VO2 max, the amount of output I have, and maybe lost some weight at the same time, boom, now I'm more efficient. It's a lot easier to do these intervals. So if you like intervals, you should do intervals. You shouldn't, so nobody should get into the mindset of, I need to do anything. Right. There's no, my job would be so easy if I could just open a book and say, okay, Brooke, you're, this tall with, this much weight, and this is what you want to do. Boom, here's your program. It would be so easy. But
or it would be 1995, and it'd be every personal trainer in 95.
Yeah. But that's just not the case. So that's probably one of the biggest blunders people have is, well, I have to do this. No, you really don't have to do anything, right? So if you want to run, and that's why I asked, that's where we want to get you back. So when you're doing your interval work, you could always do walking uphill. Right, so incline that treadmill and do your 10 minutes of 30 on, 20 off, or vice versa, or whatever. And that'll slowly get you into the mode of, okay, now I can run. Plus, those hills are going to help you recover from all your squat workouts. It's going to make your legs burn like crazy. But at the same time, you got to think about, how is that going to affect your leg volume? So when you first add it in, you definitely want to add it in like a GPP phase, just to kind of see how it makes your body feel. And then if you want to add it into, let's say, a hypertrophy phase where you're already doing a lot of volume, it may affect your RPE a little bit, but it's when we get into the strength phase and the peaking phase that it really matters. But we need to set that foundation early, right? So your interval work should only be done maybe 3 times a week. And again, if 10 minutes is good for you, that's great. If 20 minutes is great, that's okay too. But we need to just, again, make sure that we're not taking away from your actual training, right?
Well, and I'm noticing too, like I'm starting to find sticking points.
Yeah.
And my sticking points in my lifts are coming when I am a little bit out of breath control.
Oh, okay. Which
having just come out of
help?
volume. Yeah. And I ended up with summer is my worst. And it's one of those that I'm unapologetically apologetic about it. Like I'm just kind of like, listen, this is my life. This is how my life works in the summer. I am out of the gym for probably 40% of the summer because of the fact that I'm not even near a gym. And I know people would say you don't need a gym, but no, calm down. I can't do my big 3 if I'm not in a gym. So everybody chilled the fuck out. So having been rested for almost a good 2 weeks and coming in this last week, I noticed it. I just did it was supposed to be an RPE 7 top single for deadlift.
Okay.
And I ended up pulling my last meet PR.
Wow.
And
good for you.
It was more of an 8. Like I probably could have cranked out one more if I really tried. So maybe it was more of an 8-9. I kind of overshot it a little bit. But I was feeling really, really good that day. And I'd rather overshoot it ×1 and stop than undershoot it because I'm notorious for undershooting my RPE. But what ends up happening is I get a little hype squad and then I can't catch my breath. And if my breath isn't calmed, same thing with like when I'm doing sets of squats, if like when I was doing my sets of 5, I'll get to my 3rd or 4th and I literally have to take an extra almost 10 seconds, it feels like, to try to catch my breath. And that's coming into, I think, where my cardiovascular isn't where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And if I can get that a little more efficient, I mean, I am the last person that's going to look at you and say, I really want to do a bunch of cardio.
Right.
Because who does? I mean, who doesn't want to just go in, pull the weight, feel great, feel swole, and go home and, be like, I accomplished something today.
Right.
But when it really comes down to, I'm getting older. I do have the weight to lose. And I just really am starting to realize that it's going to be what it's going to take. If I really want, I'm now benching more than I've been squatting.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That is
Cole
big.
told me that. I just told him, I said, yeah, I just benched 140 for 6 the other day. And he goes, dear God. He goes, you realize your single bench is going to be more than what your single squat was now.
Right.
He's like, we got to get your squat pumped up. Well, that's going to come with, I can only imagine having better cardio, having my body be better in the cardiovascular world is also going to help my recovery too, I would assume.
So then I have to ask, and this is kind of taking a few steps back. So losing weight comes down to you expend more energy than you're taking in, right? And most of the time when I'm talking weight loss, I never want to get into the nutrition talk because most of the time people are going to go way overkill and they're going to try to undercut their calories, which is going to cut their performance and all that. But with cardio, I always want to ask, do we have to do cardio for you to lose weight, or can we add one more accessory lift that's going to bring up your squat, that's going to bring up your mobility, that's going to do all of that and still give you that same interval feel? Because what is a set of, 4 sets of 6 squats, but intervals? You just get a longer rest period in between, right? So maybe what we could do is, instead of doing treadmill or rower or skier or whatever, you could do body weight squats. Now, again, volume is going to be an issue, but if you're doing 4 rounds of 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, your heart's going to be pounding. You're going to have to force yourself in the squat mode to calm yourself down. And then it's really easy to progress from there, because with cardio, it's tough. A lot of people think an easy way to progress cardio is just do more of it. And I would rather, just like with squatting, benching, deadlift, I want you to get the most out of the least amount of work possible. So rather than making your intervals 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I'd rather see, let's say you're on the treadmill, so it easily tracks how far you've gone, making sure that at the end of every 10-minute chunk that you do each day, that you're going further, or that you had a higher incline, or in some way, shape, or form did more work, just like all of our training is always. Because a lot of people, again, get into that mode of, I just need to do more, which will help for a while, but eventually you're going to be doing a marathon, and your body becomes really efficient at running, and now it's not doing anything for you anymore. So again, I would, if you're afraid that your bench is going up beyond your squat, that's that's a great way to increase. And again, it's going to help you from a mobility standpoint. You're going to do a few more repetitions. We know you can get to depth now. And again, doing more repetitions in that movement pattern is just going to help solidify it when you have a bar on you. And it'll force you to brace, breathe, and do all of that while your heart rate's kind of high.
Well, and that's one of the things I'd mentioned, Nicole, like my squat has a ridiculously hilarious stick point. And what's funny is it goes
Where
from...
is that?
It's not very far up. It's basically kind of a bounce out of the hole, and all of a sudden it'll stop, where I'm almost at perfect parallel.
The transition from your butt to your quads.
Exactly. Yeah. And we know that we're building quad strength, and that's one of the, and that's one thing that I mentioned to him. I said, as my quads continue to get stronger, because what'll happen is I hit that stick, and then it just goes slow is all it is.
Yeah.
It still goes up. Like
Right.
I'm not stopping and dead, but it scares the hell out of everyone who spots me on a top single, because they literally think, oh God, she's done. And I'm like, no, it's just the elevator slows down a little bit. And then it's same thing with my deadlifts. I noticed that I will get it up right about mid shin, and then all of a sudden, right around my knees, excuse me, right as it hits my knees, it's like, holy hell, this is hard. And then all of a sudden the lockout is super fast.
Yeah.
It just continues. It literally is like a knife through butter is what it feels like, is a good way to describe it. It's hard. It's like, oh my God, is this thing moving? And then I hit my knees, and it's literally like, and locked out.
Yeah. So especially in the weightlifting realm, rounding the knee is always the toughest, because again, you're transitioning from using certain musculature to changing so that you can go to your lockout or your extension when you're doing a clean or something. And again, so maybe part of your cardio could be kettlebell swings, because if you hinge the same way that you do on your deadlift, you're essentially loading right around where you're going to stick. And same with your squats. So I'm sure you're doing belt squats already.
No.
Okay, so there would be an easy way, really, really light belt squats, but instead of just doing consistent all the way down, all the way up, doing a bounce out of the bottom, come up a little bit, back down into the hole, and then drive out, where you're kind of getting that a little bit of extra. If, let's say, so this isn't your problem, but some people have a problem, like one of my lifters, Luke, he feels that as soon as the bar comes off the floor for a deadlift, he rounds, and it's hard for him to keep that position. So what I've added into his programming is something we call an ISO liftoff. He literally takes like 60% of his max, and he lifts it off the ground 2 inches, holds it for 2 seconds, goes all the way down, lifts it back up 2 inches, holds it 2 seconds, and finishes, and his back is just on fire. But from a specificity standpoint, it's
lighting up those muscles
exactly
that needs to light up
in the movement that we want him to get better. So just doing back extensions or something like that, or good mornings or whatever, that makes the musculature itself strong, which he has a strong lower back. It's just being strong in this exact position. And that's what I want you to think about too, is if, again, around the knees is tough, how do we get you stronger in that exact position without necessarily taking away from your deadlift?
Well, I'm wondering if it has anything to do with the fact too that when I know it's a heavier lift, and and if I take it a little too quick, I am notorious for my ass will fly up first. If my butt flies up first on a deadlift, it's going to be the hardest deadlift of my life.
Yeah.
And so,
but you're much like Cole in that he relies on his posterior chain and not so much quad, and it sounds like you are too. Yep, where more quad strength would be great. But again, for some people, it's, especially you have this brand new range of motion, this full squat, that bottom of the hole is still so new to your body. You only have 100 repetitions at the bottom, maybe.
Right.
So another way we can add more repetitions, and if you're ever having any hip issues, we could do step-ups, where you put the box so high that you're setting your hips up in the same position they would be at the bottom of a squat. And then all you're focusing on is the concentric driving out of the bottom. That can also help your sticking point. And then it doesn't come down to, was I in the right position at the bottom? You get to literally set yourself up perfectly in the bottom. For weightlifters, what we'll do, and this is very tricky, and usually this is years down the road, if they have an issue coming out of a clean, we'll literally set up jerk blocks so that they can rack a front squat at the bottom of their squat, be perfectly balanced, and then just stand up. Then there's no eccentric loading. There's not as much damage to the body.
Is that kind of a lot like when people do pin squats and stuff like that? Is that similar to that?
or rack pulls for a deadlift.
Because I've never really understood what a pin, like I'll see people doing pin squats and I'm like, I don't really know what that's about.
So the thought behind that is, wherever you start that position, you'll get, so let's say you're just above your sticking point. It gives you 15 degrees below that point of strength. or at least in your joints and things like that. So yeah, people will set up, even with rack pulls, different positions around their sticking point to try to strengthen it. And it's somewhat specific because it's so close. Now with a deadlift, it's not that big of a deal because there is no eccentric loading, but on a squat, all that deceleration when you're sitting into the bottom, that's where all the damage comes, or at least 60% of it. So if we can put you in a position like a step up or a belt squat where most of that load is gone and you can just focus on driving out of the bottom, it can really help eliminate that sticking point, or at least make it not so pronounced. Because it does sound like out of your squat, your body is wanting to shift back into your glutes. So
because I wind up pushing forward, so that's got to be exactly what it is. Because sometimes if it gets a little, if I get the struggle, I'm on my toes. Yeah.
Hips will rise first, and you'll good morning it up. Because again, you rely on your posterior chain, so you literally have to just practice and show your body, okay, we use our glutes out of the bottom, and after that, our quads have to completely take over, and we can't do that bent over. But we also can't learn when we have 80% load on our back, at least initially. So if you can do belt squats where you're just focusing, okay, I keep my body in the same position on the way into the hole as I do out of the hole. If I were to videotape you going into the bottom of your squat and coming out, and then fast forward and rewind back and forth, it should look identical. You shouldn't be able to know if you're going down or up if I'm going back and forth really quickly. But if you're the type that leans forward or something like that, I can pinpoint and say you're going down here and you're coming up here because you're changing the position out of the bottom. So again, step ups, even just holding the bottom of a squat under a little bit of load, like a kettlebell or something like that, that can really just help solidify that position, because there's a reason you got down in that position, because structurally it's the most sound, it's the least damaging to your body. So if we lose that position coming out, we just lost all that power we were just trying to absorb, and the bounce is just negligible. I mean, it doesn't even help you at all. And again, so deadlift is the same way, bench is the same way. So you've probably seen people put like a board on their chest and bench to the board. I'm not a real big fan of that, but it can be beneficial. Especially if your sticking point is going from using your chest, which is right off your chest, into locking out your tricep.
So that would make sense, because I'm usually like, if I ever get stuck on a bench, it's literally 2 inches off my chest.
Yeah.
It's never on my chest. I've never had it happen there. It's never, if I'm past 2 inches of my chest, I'm getting this thing up. It's happening.
For a lot of people, it's their body needs to learn the transition between using certain musculature into other. So primary mover off of your chest is your chest. Then from there it goes shoulder, then it goes tricep. So your body's having an issue going from chest to shoulder. So again, you've only been powerlifting for so long, and you've only benched a certain amount of 1,000 repetitions. So your body just still hasn't really figured out, okay, the most efficient way to go from here to there is like this, right? So doing things like push-ups would be a great way to do some interval work, help you lose weight, and solidify that movement pattern where you're struggling, right? Without excessive load. Because anytime we do body weight stuff, as long as we're not doing 1,000 repetitions, it shouldn't take away from your strength training because the intensity is so low. But we can still teach your body how to do things more appropriately.
Right. Well, I love the fact that you talk about the sequence of how our muscles are used. I think
intramuscular coordination is what it's called.
I'm going to totally go on a limb here, and I'm going to speak for other people here, but I would guarantee that 95, that might even be being really generous for those who do. 95% of people have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
how that works.
Yeah, they just think that all of these muscles work at the exact same time.
Because I had no idea.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll just go through it all. So the squat. So I'm thinking from a high bar standpoint, because to be honest, unless you're a competitive powerlifter, most people high bar. Just because it's more comfortable, it's an easier position. You don't need wrist wraps when you squat. All of those things. So out of the hole, first thing to fire are your glutes. I always tell people it's like the trampoline of your body. So on a trampoline, you stretch the trampoline and it launches you up. Into the bottom of your squat, you're stretching your butt, your trampoline, and then it helps rebound you out of the bottom. So boom.
So this would mean that my glutes are firing just fine because I'm getting up those 2-3 inches.
Yeah, assuming you're in the right position, your balance is right over the middle of your foot. Yes, your butt is firing appropriately. It might not be the most efficient, but it's still firing. Appropriate. Yep, it's still appropriate. It's at least absorbing and redistributing that energy. Then the transition into keeping your quads into the motion, right? Because a lot of people, when they get into the bottom, they kind of lose that tension in their quads. They lose all of that stretch. And some people, to be honest, when they're squatting, they almost feel like they have to pull themselves into the bottom and then stand up somehow, where they're thinking about the squat so weird. Because really what a squat is certainly we are sitting down, but we are trying to resist the bar from going out of position on the way down, which is almost like we're doing 1,000 mini squats all the way down, right? An infinite amount, because we don't want that bar to accelerate into the bottom until we need it to. We have to have it controlled. So our quads have to be on the entire time. And it's just, we slowly lose mechanical efficiency because we're going down, down, down. That way, as soon as we hit that bottom, our quads are already on. We're not just somehow turning on a muscle that wasn't on the whole time, and we're able to rebound. So again, a lot of people out of the hole, it's fine because they get that bounce. And if it's not in their glutes, if their position changes, then it's in their joints. And that's a problem we have to deal with. So if you are the type that the moment you start ascending, you tip over, you might be just bouncing out of your kneecaps. And that's where like knee pain will come from, or ankle pain or hip pain, because you're actually not using muscle, you're just using joints. And that's where the word bounce is a problem for me. That's why I say rebound, right? Because you can't, if you're bouncing, you literally can just crash. And a lot of people, when they hear bounce, they think I have to go as fast as I can into the bottom. And that's not true. Cole made a good point last week where he said, I can't remember who he was quoting, but you only go, I don't remember. Anyway, Chad Wesley Smith, that's who he was quoting, where he said, you only go as fast as your form will allow, right? So bounce to some people means to go too fast, and again, rebound. So then out of the bottom, if your position changes at all, I know you're not in your quads, right? So a lot of times the best thing you can do is on even all of your warm-up sets, video yourself. And just on your warm-up sets, forget about the heaviest sets, because the last thing you need to focus on is videoing yourself.
Right.
Or throwing off your rest periods because you're overanalyzing something. But on your warm-up sets, you kind of have that.
Well, and your heavy sets are the ones where we're going to have form breakdown anyway.
Shouldn't, but yeah. Right.
But like, for example, it was really hard for me when I would first start watching powerlifting meets and I would see some form fall out.
Yeah.
And I remember Cole having that discussion with me, because I love that I can be open with Cole and be like, hey, was this person to depth? Hey, was this?
Right.
And he understands that when I'm asking, I'm not being shady. I'm literally going, I want to learn. I want to understand what I'm seeing. And
if your form is to break down, it should break down on
an RPE 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But in all reality, it shouldn't break down at all, right?
That's the goal.
That's the absolute goal, right? If you're strong enough and are not pulled out of your position, some people would say, well, then you're not doing an RPE 10, you're doing a 9.9 because it was too perfect. Fine.
And that's when you go, you know what? Here's a Capri Sun. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, right.
Here,
but
go sit down.
So if your form is going to break down, it should be on an RPE 10. It should be the first time you've ever touched that weight. So it should be a PR or a PR attempt. That's when your form should break down. Your form should no longer break down the second, third, fourth, fifth time you've hit that weight. So if your best squat is 400, but this is the 9th time you've hit it, and you always round your upper back, there's some problem going on. First time is different.
Just had a thought here. So this is where I think sometimes it gets confusing. There's a difference, obviously, then between form breakdown and exertion.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Dr. Jacob Harden was on with us a few podcasts back, and if you haven't listened to that cast, go back and get a notebook, because he had so many phenomenal things to say. But one thing he mentioned is on more the weightlifting side of things, not in the powerlifting side, their way that they figure out their RPE 7 in an AMRAP is as soon as that starts to feel heavy, as soon as you start to feel that a little bit of a struggle in the exertion of it, that's when you know it's an RPE 7. And that was a takeaway for me that has changed the way that I lift. I
usually tell people, as soon as you feel something's going wrong, if the next rep you aren't able to fix it, you're done.
Right.
It's because every once in a while you take not enough breath or whatever. Maybe you do lose your balance a little bit because you're going a little fast. Okay, fine. You can have one mistake. But if it's the same mistake twice in a row, or that mistake gets worse, you're done.
Yep.
That's you've gone beyond where you need to go, because obviously your body is starting to break down and it can't maintain that position. And that's all we're trying to do. We only need you to kind of struggle, only kind of strain. And that's an easy way to find out, is if 2 in a row, you can't fix the problem.
Well, and that's really interesting to hear too. My squat sets, I think it was at like 154 for five maybe, and it was supposed to be like an RPE 8 for me. And that's when I was having that question again in my brain afterwards, going, is this more cardio or is this more I'm not strong enough?
Right.
But I noticed that too, that on my last couple sets, obviously you're more fatigued at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But when I would hit 3, I would literally have to be like, whew, slow it down, double check everything. Because I think we get really into, I'm one of those people that I have to I'm a high bar and I have to pop my hips back.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have my hips back before I start, I'm never going to hit depth.
Right.
I've learned this.
Yeah. And if you do, you'll be on your toes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what ends up happening. And so it was that exact realm where I would hit 3 and I would say to myself, oh my God, is this as much as I can do? Reset my form and I could still crank out my last 3.
Right.
And when I was done, I wasn't in death mode.
No.
And that was to me going, okay, you have to remind yourself that it's not just about how it felt in the middle of the sets, it's how you felt after the set too.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
how fast did I recover?
Right.
You know, I had benched separate that day that I squatted. And my squat day, I thought actually, even though it was a little bit of a struggle bus on one of my sets, I was like, you know what? Hey, damn it. These are my heaviest squats for sets of 4 or 5, whatever I did. That night I was benching, and on my 3rd or 4th set at 140, I was pretty proud of myself because usually I think a couple weeks ago, I was only cranking out 135 for like 4, and it was a struggle bus. And to do 40 at I think 6 is what I was doing. I hit my last set, and it dawned on me. I'm like, I hit 3, and I go, that's it, we're done. And I hadn't eaten all day.
Oh, okay.
So I started to look at the things that had, like, I'm like, why am I not doing this? But it was exactly that, is I noticed that, like, from the very first rep, it was massive struggle bus. Things weren't where they were supposed to be. And I called it quits that day. Could I have dropped the weight down on it? Yeah, I could have dropped the weight back down. But I thought to myself, you know what? You've had a good lift day. If I'm a little bit short on a couple reps on this last one, looking at my scenario of literally hadn't eaten solid food in 10 hours.
Right.
Okay. It's
That's
time to,
exactly
you
right.
call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try to remind people, so even though I squat 5 days a week, I still make mistakes when I'm squatting. And if I'm going to make a mistake on a multiple rep set, so let's say I'm doing 6. If I make a mistake or multiple, it's going to be on repetition 3 or 4. It's not going to be 5 or 6. Now, 5 or 6, I might slow down, but there's no necessary or unnecessary breakdown. So I'm not on my toes because those last 2 reps, they need to be so perfect. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful.
Right.
And for me, and apparently my athlete Luke, squatting more frequently allows us really to focus on that form, so that, because again, so at least for a weightlifter, the squat is only a strengthening exercise to keep us in a certain position. That's it. That's all we do, and that's all we use squats for, is to make sure that no matter what, I have 100% control over every vertebrae in my body, my whole structure. That way, when 330 pounds hits me in the chest and I got to stand up, I'm able to. I can rely back on all of that solid foundation. Now with Luke, so him being a competitive powerlifter, he needs to make sure that squat, he can produce the most force. So again, mine's for positioning, his is for force, and mine's a little bit for force too. But for him, especially with a history of knee pain, it's very tough for him in a volume phase to do 5 sets of 8 in a day. And then come back 3-4 days later and then do a top set of 5 or something like that. So what we've done is, instead of doing 5 sets of 8, we've cut him back to doing 4 sets of 6 twice a week. So he gets the same if not more volume, more total work. It gives him a couple days in between to let his knees rest. And then he's actually able to way go beyond where he thought he would. So let's say a 5 sets of 8, he'd do it at 100 pounds, whatever. Now he's doing 4 sets of 6. So it's in a week, it's more total volume. He's doing it at 115, 120. So he's going far past where he would have just the one day. And on his set of 5, he's not completely beat up, and he's actually able to use more weight. And because we've now gone into, okay, now you're able to lift more volume each week, you need to really focus on positioning these first 2 sessions. This third session, we're just focusing on force. He's able to just go crazy. So some people, even though from a scientific standpoint, maybe only squatting twice a week is ideal, sometimes extenuating circumstances, you need to change it a little bit. As long as on a weekly basis, you're able to increase your output and your 5 rep max or whatever is still continuing to go up, it's working for you. So again, going back to when we first started this conversation, it was just because you think you need it doesn't mean you actually do, right? There is no such thing as you have to squat twice a week, because there are some, really high level powerlifters that squat twice a month.
I squat every day that I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
And I am in the gym. I am programmed in the gym 4 days a week.
Yeah. And it works.
Can you tell how like distant and ghosty I've been? I can't even think. But it does. But here's the thing is, I have to remind myself too to pay very close attention to the way Cole has me programmed, because like when I went in for my first lift day this week, I mean, I was just like, yes, finally I'm back. I had a 4-day migraine. And that was the other thing too, is I started to look at, why am I in this deterioration of health? Like, why do I not want to get out of bed? Why is my anxiety high again? Why am I just completely demotivated in life? It wasn't even just going to the gym. It was like, because I would see all my teammates at the gym on Instagram and more. And I would get this like lonely heart. Like I would be like, I really wish I could be there. And I'm like, hold up. Why am I, you can hear my son in the background. He's actually singing along to a YouTube video.
I thought he was yelling for you again.
No, he's, poor guy has my lungs. So I can hear him all the way down the hall. But I realized, I was like, what went wrong? And Cole was kind of in that same boat too. We were both talking about how just like shit humans we felt. Right. And we looked back, and June was nothing but country music festivals, drinking White Claws and getting shitty sleep. Right. My food was shit. I wasn't in the gym normal. I literally had a 4-day migraine this last week. And the only thing that completely kicked its ass was putting a bar on my back.
Yeah. Exertion.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And it was almost like my body was like...
It resets your hormones.
Yeah, and it was coming back at me going, what the fuck have you been doing with your life? Like, why have you not been in the gym? And I literally told my boss at the station a while back, I said, you will know when I haven't been at the gym, because my entire attitude just changes. I get short. I get not nice. And so I think knowing that is one of the reasons when I came to you and I was like, should I be doing this cardio? I really want to get, I want to get my body back in tune. I think that I know that I did kind of rush to a conclusion of, okay, I really need to do some cardio. I need this. What am I going to do?
I need to add things to my life and not change what's going on.
Kind of like you mentioned with nutrition. We're like, okay, well, we need to do this because this is what's going to make us, this is what's going to give us those fast results. Because once you've tasted great results, once you've felt, they always have that thing like nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. I don't even want to talk about that, but I will talk about the fact that
oatmeal cream pies taste amazing, so shut up.
Totally,
I had 24 of them in 5 days. And the mega ones.
You're a fucking animal.
Yeah, because, well, I'm getting married in a few weeks, so that was my last ditch effort to try to have diabetes, I guess.
By the way, speaking of you and food, I sent this to Cole last night because I thought it was so perfect. It says, for anybody considering moving in with their significant other, remember this. Yesterday I bought a 24-pack of Gushers. Tonight there is 6 left. 6! Do with this information what you will.
For me,
and I thought
smiles.
it was smileys. Yep. I totally thought of you, but yeah, like it's
nothing is sacred.
If you're looking to make that change, or you get that little lightning bolt in you to be like, okay, this needs to change. I need to fix this.
Enthusiasm kills so many things.
Don't Google it. Right. Reach out to somebody who knows, because I love the fact that when we originally started talking about this cardio thing, not only did you say, okay, I got to talk to Cole, but you were like, P.S. I'm not rushing you into this.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I said, first thing I want you to do is just get on a treadmill 3 times a week for 10 minutes.
And just walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because really what that's going to do is, I was hoping to bore the shit out of you.
Oh, that's why I didn't do it. I actually did things like, I actually did like the rower, which makes me feel like I'm going to vomit instead.
Well, not even, so I guess it wasn't even to try to get you on a different machine. It was to try to convince you that
you didn't really need cardio.
Yeah, it's not going to make you feel that. Because again, you came to me saying, I want it to help me lose weight, and I'm tired of being a potato, but I also want to feel good.
Potato with legs.
And the way you were describing it to me, you made it seem like this was some end all be all. All I have to do is cardio and it's going to fix everything.
Right.
So I was giving you what you wanted without giving you what you wanted, right? And that's where a lot of people struggle, is whether they misinterpret or whatever, it's all enthusiasm. If they're convinced that this is the way to go, I mean, I can lie to you all
That's
day
why
long.
Fit T sells.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. But so your enthusiasm, and this is where a lot of people that I see on a daily basis, they spend so much time on the treadmill, or they starve themselves so much because they're so convinced that all I have to do is eat less and do more cardio and I'll be thinner. And to a point that works, but at some point you get smashed in the face and you're going to relapse and you're going to make up for all those lost calories. So again, if we can make your cardio fun without you even realizing it is cardio, and at the same time benefit your actual goal, that's what we want to do, right? To a lot of people, it's scary, I guess, because it's not, I'm not telling you that this is going to work. I'm saying this is what we're going to try, because I don't know. And I was having this conversation with myself on the way here, and I do that a lot. And it was, again, I wish I could just say, Brooke, this is exactly what you need, but I don't know, because each week, each month, you're gonna experience different things. You're gonna be eating differently. So let's say in the month of June, because you weren't sleeping, it doesn't matter how much cardio you're doing, how much training you're doing. It has no bearing if you're not getting a solid 7 or more hours of sleep, right? And for a lot of people, that's hard for them to hear, because they always think, you know what, if I cut an hour of sleep, I can do more work. I can do this. I can do that. Your productivity goes down. Your energy levels go down. Your hormones are all over the place. You are craving some crazy foods. Your training isn't as good. An RPE 7 now feels like an RPE 15, and you can't believe you didn't blow out your asshole on that set. It's crazy, right? It's hard, is I guess how I would say it. And that's why this job for me is so fun, is because everybody's a puzzle and everybody needs something different. And it's, you need to ask. You need to at least ask somebody who might know one more thing than you and just see their opinion. So the scariest thing for me is when I tell people that, they'll go up to somebody and that person they ask says, well, this is how you do it. And you just can't take it like that, because again, if keto was the end all be all, we'd all be keto.
Right.
If high carb, low carb, high fat, low fat, no protein, all protein, whatever, if all that worked, there'd be no such thing as a diet pill. There'd be no such thing as a multi-billion-dollar supplement company, companies, and there'd be no supplement industry. And if all you had to do was do a few squats, do a few deadlifts, and you could look and be the whatever you want to be, well, that'd be easy. It's not easy. The number one thing you can do is try. So I want to go back a little bit, and I definitely want to go over sticking points some more, because we did get into the squats a little bit, but you did say something that I have to address, and you said the meme of, you don't need a gym, you don't need any of that, right? So
right.
Certainly you can't squat without a rack necessarily. You can't deadlift without a bar or some object to pick up, and you can't bench without laying down and pushing something off your chest. Stupid. Anyway, but what you can do is work on your weaknesses and certain things like the step-ups we were talking about before. So maybe you don't have access to a plyo box or something you could put your foot on, or maybe your office chair is too high or it's swivelly or whatever, but you can do lunges, you can do body weight squats, you can do push-ups, because again, especially with your sticking points, doing those are going to help. Plus, it's going to keep you moving. It's going to take the necessity for cardio out of the equation, because if, let's say you have 20 minutes at the end of the day to do treadmill, well, those 20 minutes can be better used than just doing treadmill or throughout the day. So in June especially, what was stopping you from spending 10 minutes and working on your squat mobility to make sure that you keep it, or doing push-ups? And maybe you can't do push-ups on your toes or even on your knees, but you can put your hands on this table that we're at and you're just doing push-ups, because again, when you're so new, and even some athletes when they have been lifting for 10 years, if there's this new technique thing that they have to get over in their head, it's going to take a lot of repetitions, and not just necessarily under the bar or with the bar, but again, with push-ups, you can certainly work teaching your body to go from chest to shoulder to tricep again and again. And you can make it so low intensity. But if you're doing 100 of them in a day, 20 sets of 5 as the day goes on. I mean, there's always those tales of some guy hangs a pull-up bar in his door frame, and every time he walks through it, he does a pull-up, and then 6 months later, he can do 20 in a row because it all comes down to patterns. If your body gets really good at this pattern and becomes very efficient, whether it's a good pattern or it's you learn something the wrong way and it's a bad habit, your body gets really efficient at doing it that way, right? So you don't need a gym. You just need
question,
commitment.
If I was going to be doing a push-up, let's say.
Yep.
We know that my sticking point is about 2 inches off my chest, right?
Yep.
When I have a sticking point and I fail a bench, it's about 2 inches off my chest.
Yep.
So
as is
when
most
you're
people.
doing, when you're doing a push-up, that's the coming off the floor, right?
Yeah, or off your table or off your... So like if I did them on...
Because if I was going to have to do an actual push-up for you right now, the most difficult part of it
is off the floor.
Is off the floor.
Exactly, because that's your sticking point, right? And then also, so a lot of people think when they hear push-up, oh, I just have to crank out push-ups. I will tell you right now, 90% of people do push-ups incorrectly, or at least they don't use the proper musculature to do it. They get down there and they come back up, but maybe their hips rise, shift back, whatever. So you're way better off if you're going to add this into your program. Again, make it the easiest possible. So like, I'm going to just get up and show you this, and I'm going to try to describe it as I do it. But on a push-up especially, if your sticking point is where it is, we want your hands the same distance away.
Hold on.
Right? So you're going to have to...
I'm going to move some stuff.
Oh, you're going to video this?
I'm going to video
All
this,
right.
and then I will...
I was going to explain it, and I think
You can still explain it, because I'll put it up on the Instagram.
Yeah, all right. So
your
hands are going to still be the proper distance. Your elbows still have to do the same thing, and everything's going the exact same way. But if off your chest is the tough part, you literally just set yourself up so that, right now my chest is just about touching the table. And while I'm in this position, I'm making sure that, okay, my chest is stretched. I feel my lats are still on, my shoulders are retracted. And then what you'll do is you'll push just past your sticking point and then come right back down. So it looks like I'm only doing half reps, because I kind of am, because your problem isn't tricep. It's teaching your body how to make sure your chest stays stretched and learn how to go from chest to shoulder. Now, could there be a weakness? Sure. But again, you're so new at powerlifting, you shouldn't have established weaknesses already. It all comes down to you haven't done 10,000 repetitions. So right now, this is just your problem. So again, you can do it on a bench. And I mean, I can do 1,000 of them. I can do it, with my eyes closed and my leg up and fucking just go all day. But again, if you do it slow and you do it smoothly, you're teaching yourself how to, again, transition from chest to shoulder to tricep without doing an excessive amount of loading, right?
Well, and think about the fact, too, that when you're bench pressing, this isn't explosive off your chest.
No.
This isn't moving. It is rare that I've ever seen anybody bench press as fast as we try to push up.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And what's cool, too, is it's the same concept of if you are having a problem with force production, a great way to improve on that, let's say for your legs, is plyometrics, jumping, right? Doing something lower weight, but quicker. Some people do it on the bench too, where let's say your best bench is 200 pounds. You might do this with 120, and all you're focusing on is I'm going to pause it on my chest, and all I'm thinking about is how fast can I get my arms from here to a lockout position? Because then you're adding that speed too. And again, you're forcing your body under lower loads to deal with that transition too. And you can, again, instead of focusing on I can only do 6, you can do 30 when we're talking 50% of your max. I mean, not that you would take it to that extreme, but if we know, hey, I could do 15, I'm only going to do 5, by no means are you going to be fatiguing your body out. But again, you're doing a little bit more work, right? You're doing the quote unquote cardio. You're doing that extra volume to lose the weight at the same time. And again, you're improving on all of those issues that you're having. So again, for sticking points, going back to the squat. So for your problem, if it's truly your glutes are doing their job and it's quads, you got to work that position. It's not going to just fix itself. And doing more full squats isn't going to help you wrap your mind around it, okay? especially if, let's say, there's a bad habit where you instantly shift to your toes, your hips lift up. Doing more reps is just going to solidify that bad habit. But again, for most lifters, they just need to feel it right once. Mm-hmm. So if we can do belt squats.
Kind of like when I finally hit depth.
Yeah. You just need to feel it once. And all of a
sudden, it actually, I did it once, and then it was reaffirmed to me by someone else, hey, you hit depth. And I was like, what? Okay. So then we go again. And then all of a sudden, I can tell when I'm not hitting it because it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
And what's brilliant is in the beginning, I would feel a certain type of stretch in my knees when I would hit depth.
Yeah.
Well, as my body does it more often, my knees become looser to the position.
Right. Yeah.
So I had to really start focusing on how different in other aspects it felt because I was going really, really slow into the hole.
Yeah.
And Cole was like, quit pausing in the bottom. You got to come out of that. He's like, you're literally like, the way he said it to me, and I can't remember his exact words, but the way he said it to me, it made me feel like I was literally like an hourglass. And my strength for that single lift is constantly flowing out. The longer you take in the hole, the harder it's going to be for you to bring that weight back up, especially in competition. And so that's how I see it in my head. And so when I started dropping into that hole faster to come back out, when I was starting to have that rebound faster, that's when I started having my sticking point.
Oh, yeah.
And
because again, that's because you're doing it faster. Now your body has to transition faster into your quads because it was so used to, I have
all this time to reactivate
0.4 seconds to go into my quads because it's going to take me this long out of the bottom. And in my mind, I'm thinking the whole time, okay, and now where, you have to learn that new set point. And that's where, again, these belt squats will help as well because you literally get to practice with 25 pounds. Okay, I'm down, go. Oh, this is the timing. Oop, that was a little slow. Oop, that was too fast. Oh, I'm on my toes. Where you're doing it just to practice that one little thing. Then once you have it perfect under basically no load at all, now let's add load to it. And so many people try to fix it with load right away. And again, you don't even know what it feels like to know if you're doing it right. Now you're dealing with all this load. You have to.
And now you've got that fear of, oh my God, what if I don't come back up?
Right.
There's so much mental game that happens.
We don't want you thinking about anything but this one thing. And that's where these belt squats can help. And that's where with weightlifting, you learn on a broomstick or a small, really.
Like a PVC pipe even.
PVC pipes are going away because they're too easy to manipulate.
Oh, because is it because they're so flexible?
No, because it's 3 grams. There's no load. You might as well do it empty. A lot of people are getting these technique bars where they're 15 pounds. They're very light.
Oh, that's the one I was going to get for Timothy.
Yeah, you can do anything you want with them. For the most part, they still have bushing, so you can still feel the turnover. And again, it's under such low load. You can do 30 repetitions without being exhausted. You'd only do a few at a time, but you can do a lot. And that's where you can solidify all this training. So even let's say I'm doing a max out session on a snatch, and let's say my goal is to do 250 or whatever. On the way up, if I'm having issues, I get a light 10-pound bar or whatever, and I'm trying to, okay, this is it. It's not pulling away from my maximum because it's 12 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever.
Right.
It's not 200. And I'm also taking the time to really think about it. And then when it comes time to do the 250, I can feel it in my body because I felt it with 10 pounds. And now I just have to do it with 250. Right. So same thing is going to happen with all of these examples I'm going to give.
Well, and that would be really nice too, because like if I'm squatting, it's one of those moments. It kind of feels glorious, but it's kind of scary at the same time when you start stepping out to do those just empty bar squats and it feels like nothing.
Yeah.
Like you literally feel like you could like flip that bar around your fingertip, like you're in a carnival.
Yeah.
And it isn't until I hit about 135, that's where I start. I go from bar to 135.
Right. Yeah.
Typically, sometimes I'll do like a 95.
Right.
Which isn't bad, but at the same time, that's more of me just trying to get the knees warmed up and get everything else warmed up. But when it comes down to actually feeling some weight and being a little bit more mindful of positioning, it doesn't get really solid and easy to do that until I hit a minimum of 135 on the bar.
Yeah. And again, so for the listeners, I want to make this clear that there's 2 different types of technique work in my mind. The one where just for you to even conceptualize what's going on, that's the body weight squat, that's unloaded, that's just the bar, that's, it's not going to actually change your body, but it's going to make sure that you're feeling the right thing so that we can take what you felt and how you think about the lift, and now we can apply load to it. So there's heavy technique, and then there's just knowing what a squat is, right? Or how my body needs to squat.
Almost like teaching that muscle memory.
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
Exactly. And that's all it is. So a lot of people try to skip past that, but you still need to make sure that when you think of a squat, you know exactly what it feels like, looks like, blah, 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 for your body. And if you can't think to yourself, I feel myself going down into a squat, my eyes are closed, I feel the bottom position, it feels all good, there's no knee pain, hip pain, anything, and I'm coming up perfectly. If you can't think that and you can't slow it down, and I always challenge some of my athletes, if you can't visualize it in your head upside down, you don't know how to squat. Yeah, so you have to know the squat so well and how you picture the squat so well with your body that you can literally flip yourself upside down and still see it going on, where now the ground is where the ceiling would be and you can see yourself squatting. Or can you give yourself a bird's eye view of yourself squatting and know it so well that you can do a 360 degree turn all the way around while your body is still facing one way? Can you visualize that? If not, why are
that
you,
I can do.
right? So now try flipping it. So the reason I say that is because it tells me to the level of which you actually understand what your body is trying to go through. Because if you can't even think, oh, I can't even look at me from the left side instead of the right because I always see it from the right side from the camera. If you can't think of it from the left, how is your body supposed to know what a squat is at all? Because you only know one side of your body anyway, or you can only picture it one way. So if you can't picture it, you can't do it. And that's where
I can't do the upside down one, but I can do the 360.
Right, but that's going to be.
The upside down one, I'm over here going, so wait, am I just pushing the ceiling away from me?
You would. It's almost like a leg press.
Am I standing on my hands?
You can almost imagine the squat as a leg press at that point, where the weight or the floor is where the sled would be, and but again, if you can't picture it in more than just one way, again, you don't have a grasp of what's actually going on.
It's kind of like when you're deadlifting and you're not thinking about pulling a bar off the floor, you're thinking about pushing the floor away from you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Or some people, what they like to think is the bar stays bolted to the floor and you're standing on a pit of sand and you're trying to pull yourself and drive your legs down through the sand and the bar doesn't move. And for some people that can help them. But again, if you can only visualize the deadlift in one way, you're not where you need to be truly maxing out. It's not safe for you to try to pull 315 because again, you can't even picture it, let alone do it. And that's where a lot of high school kids have such an issue because they've seen it one time and they might have, they see, let's say a high level lifter lift it and in their mind, they have that high level lifter. This is how it needs to be. That's great. But you don't see yourself doing it that way. You see some other person.
Well, and you don't see how that lifter feels when they're pulling.
True.
You know, like
you can't internalize
especially
it.
if you're watching a sumo lifter and it feels, if you're watching it, it looks like their whole purpose is to lift and lean, when really what you have no idea is in their brain, they are literally pressing that bar away from the ground with their legs, and that's just the natural way that body moves for the lockout with the shoulders.
Yeah.
Where most people think it's this lean forward, lean back thing, and it feels exactly the opposite when you're actually lifting.
And a lot of coaches miss this point where just because you see a high level lifter do it, if you can't feel what they're going through, if you can't actually conceptualize, okay, the reason it looks this way is, and I'll take a step back, if you can't see something and actually do it yourself under some load, you shouldn't be coaching that exercise, right? So if you can't watch, even let's use Cole as an example. If you can't watch Cole squat 600 pounds and even have an idea of kind of what he's going through, or how he changes position, or what maybe he needs to work on. If you can't feel his breakdowns, you shouldn't be coaching, or you shouldn't be coaching him. You know what I'm saying? So like his coach from a conceptual standpoint needs to be able to understand Cole squatting better than Cole does just by watching it. So let's say you watch your athlete and you're like, I don't understand why they keep going under their toes. you shouldn't be coaching that athlete.
Right.
Or at least that exercise.
Well, here's a prime example. I think that comes into the adaptability and the fact that we've talked just a minute ago about, is cardio right for you? But it's not even just, cardio's not just a treadmill. It's about figuring out what's best for that athlete. Prime example, look at, Daniela Mayo and Amanda Lawrence. They're both coached by the same guy.
Right.
However, I guarantee he has different methods and there's different things for each of them.
I hope so.
It's not just, hey, I'm going to have both my athletes squat and they're both going to bench and they're both going to deadlift. It is literally, here's what Amanda needs for this, here's what Daniela needs for this, and vice versa.
Yeah. I hope that's how it's happening. I hope it's not, I have this cookie cutter and hopefully they don't figure it out.
Right. And there are, I hate to say it, there are a lot of coaches in this world that will cookie cutter and they will get by with an online program. And I've had many people reach out to me when they've thought about inquiring for Cole with Salutum, and I love a couple things about Cole. He caps his number of athletes.
Yeah,
because
huge.
He realizes
that's huge.
In order for him to be able to coach the way he likes to coach, he can only have so many. But when people have reached out to me and asked, they're like, well, is he responsive? And I'm like, are you kidding me? He absolutely is. And we have a couple teammates that are, well, now actually quite a few teammates that are not in our general area. They don't get to come and do the team lifts. And I feel so bad about it because I'm like, you're missing that camaraderie. But we have a great online presence. And that was one, I know Chris, that was one of the things he asked, he's like, is he really going to respond to me? Is he really going to listen to what I have to say? And I said, absolutely he is. And I find myself very lucky to have found him when I did. And for anybody who might be listening right now that maybe doesn't feel their coach is a right fit and they're too embarrassed to say something, or they're like, well, I feel bad. You can't, because this is your journey and this is your body. And take it from me, who had a bad coach before I had Cole, you are putting yourself in a path of not good things if you do not feel you're in the right mind, because this lifting experience isn't just physical, it's emotional. And there's nothing, it's like they even say when it comes to, domestic violence and stuff, it's not just someone gets slapped by someone. Someone can be absolutely emotionally abused for years and not know it. And if you are not in the right mindset, if your coach is not in that mindset for you, if you're constantly feeling like you have questions that aren't getting answered, if you don't feel like you're progressing, if you start to see a light in somebody else, you can dig through the bullshit on Instagram and you can see the people who truly have good, healthy relationships with their coaches. Ask yourself, am I where I need to be? Am I is it filling my cup? Am I feeling like I'm getting somewhere? Reach out, because even if somebody, and this isn't me trying to say everybody should be coached by Cole, because Cole might not be a perfect fit for you. He might not fit your personality. But we know people who might. That's one of the great things about Get Complete is if you are a coach, you can reach out to you guys and you can find better ways to become a better coach. You can find other people, other resources. As an athlete myself who came into this world not knowing shit, and I just started following #powerlifting. I started following #girls who powerlift. I have come to the conclusion that there are, for lack of better terms, tribes of people in this entire sport. And you find the ones that you connect with. You find the ones that make you feel like I want to be a part of that. And there's going to be some others that you're like, that's not my bag. That's not my thing. That's not my vibe. And, having this conversation, shit, Josh, this is our 31st episode. And this is the first time you and I have really sat down and, we've always you've done your weightlifting thing and Cole's always been here and been my coach. And it's not that it takes anything away from Cole, but it's a prime example as to why, you two talk a lot between each other of, whether you have a client who wants to maybe get a little stronger in something, or maybe they want to branch out, and vice versa. Maybe he's got someone. I know the two of you have even chatted, at least I'm pretty sure you have in the past, when it came to like my mobility issues, like what are some ideas? This whole world is based off of conversations.
Yeah, and a big thing is, let's say going back a little bit, if you don't feel good with your coach, you got to remember your coach is your teammate, not just your leader, I guess is what I would say. I mean, your coach should know certain things, but they're your teammates. So if you don't feel comfortable asking another coach's opinion, that's not a teammate, right? Your current coach is not your teammate. They're not doing what's best for you. A good coach will embrace the fact that you want to invite another coach into this team because you feel like, hey, you know what? I feel you're struggling with this, and you and I are trying to figure this out, and I still have all these questions. You don't have answers. This person might have answers. Why don't we 3 work together? We 4, we 10, we 50. And that's where this whole podcast thing came in is, again, Cole and I sat down one day and we were just bullshitting about our athletes, and he was improving how I looked at my athletes. I was improving how he looked at his, and we were like, son of a bitch, we should do this for everybody. And that's why we bring in athletes and coaches and things like that, where you literally get to hear Cole and I bounce ideas back and forth between each other so we can benefit that person. And if you didn't listen to the last full-length podcast, that's what we did with Cole, is we bounced back and forth on his training, and we were like, yeah, why can't you do conventional deadlift? Why can't you do more squat volume? And the day before, and where he had all of these assumptions that we absolutely broke through on this podcast this last time. And why? Because I'm his teammate. I'm willing to be wrong, and so is he, and that's what makes a good coach, is they're willing to try shit. And again, Cole knows his body more than I do. He's done his training more than I've done his training. In that when I bring up an idea, he can shoot it down because he's like, no, here's why that doesn't work. But if I was afraid to even bring up the question, I shouldn't be in that conversation with him.
Right.
That's huge, and that's something that you need to even do for yourself. And that's where, with these sticking points too, it's what do I really need to work on and why, and really dive into why. And if you don't know, if you'd have never even thought, oh, it's because it's the transition from pec to shoulder to tricep on my bench, and that's where I'm struggling.
Never in my life.
Right. But
I am all about mind muscle connection.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I think that bench was so big for me from the start was that that was the first thing I did ask. And that was the one thing that my previous coach before Cole was good at, was helping me, because he was a good personal trainer with general fitness. So when I would say to him, okay, I'm doing this lift, where do I need to feel it?
Right.
We didn't go as far as, because I was never into the technique point at that point. But he was at that time, even though he wasn't powerlifting specific, that's where I went wrong, is he wasn't a powerlifting specific coach. We both dabbled.
Right.
And it dabbled in the wrong direction for me. But he was still good about answering questions. And if you're with a coach who takes offense to questions, if you're with a coach who doesn't want to educate himself or herself, if you're with a coach that is more about what something looks like for everybody else and not about you, there's got to be not enough reward. The ROI has to be low for you. And that's when you need to start looking around and going, listen, am I doing this casually enough that I don't care? Or do I really want to have the longevity? Do I want, and I'm talking longevity both physically and mentally, because it's going to wear down on you at some point. Cole doesn't give 2 shits what any other lifter's doing when he's working with me.
Right. Yeah. He's locked in on you.
He will take things he's learned from other lifters. He will take things he's learned from watching other lifters at a distance that he doesn't even work with. He will take that and use it as a resource, as like an Encyclopedia Britannica for me.
Right. As just a tool.
Right. But he doesn't do it for the gram. He doesn't do it because he wants to be Cole Warren, powerlifting coach.
Right.
He doesn't want to fit a mold.
He does it to help Brooke.
Yeah. And that's what makes a difference. And
and that's why his lifters are doing so well too, is because you have this guy that literally a tornado could come through and he's still watching you.
His house could literally be on fire right now. Somebody would be putting it out and he would be at my meet.
And someone's calling him and he doesn't even answer the phone I work with quite a few personal trainers, in that I can tell a good trainer and a bad trainer on their first day just by how they interact, where if they're so concerned with, are people looking at me, what's going on, and they are unable to just put all that aside and just focus on that athlete, if their attention is distracted more than a little bit, because I was talking to you a little bit, but even with the gentleman that I was teaching on bench, when it came down to him doing the lifts or me giving him an explanation of something, a gun could have gone off and it wouldn't have distracted me at all. Because it's, not only is this guy paying me money, but I've invested my heart and soul into his technique, into his
Right.
form, into his goal. Because to me, that's what makes me feel good about what I do, is I want to make sure that no matter what your goal, I don't care if you want to be a stripper. I want to make you the best stripper you possibly
Like,
can. And I'm
I
going to give you my
want you
input.
to be fire on that pole.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. If you came to me and said, Josh, I'm a stripper and I need my ass to grow.
I'd
Okay.
be like, okay, we
All
got
right,
you.
let's do
We
this
got
shit.
you.
Right. Well, I don't give a damn what your goal is. It's what I care about is the level of commitment. So like with you, could we add some cardio? Sure. But that's a total last resort. There's so many more things we could be doing.
Mhm.
And again, if you like intervals, let's apply that to what you need to be working on with your squats, with your push-ups, with kettlebell swings, or whatever we end up figuring out along
Sled
the way.
pushes and ball slams.
Well,
Freaking
sled
love
pushes
those.
definitely could help.
I love those.
Or
I hate them, but I love them. Like they make me
Yeah.
want to throw up. But man, that high you get when you're done with them,
right.
man, and you get that like wheezy cough for the rest of the day because you're
Right.
like, my cardio's way low.
Yeah, and the only time I would put you on a rower or a skier, let's say a rower, is you need some heart rate work, great. You need to lose some weight, great. But if you had a problem with, let's say your mid-back or your pulling mechanic, for some reason you just suck at doing bent over rows. So rather than hammering more bent over rows into you, let's get you on the rower because you
Right.
have these goals of losing weight too. And let's do some intervals on the rower. You're going to feel it where I need you to
Meanwhile,
feel it.
I really love single arm rows, and so why
Right.
not just do single arm rows, which I love
Right.
because I hate the rower.
Yeah, or Josh, I know it's my triceps. I have no problems on bench, but if my triceps could just do more work, it'd be a lot better. Plus, I need to make sure I'm the leanest I can be so I'm more competitive in my weight class. Great, let's put you on the skier because the skier is going to work not only your lat engagement, but the backs of your arms like you want, and you're going to lose weight. Boom, we just helped your bench. I mean, cardio should be just a tool. It's not an end-all, be-all.
Boom. There it is.
Done.
I was also going to add too, by the way, this was not an ad for Josh and Cole as
Fuck
coaches.
cardio. I don't
But
do
it was more, hey, there are plenty of awesome coaches out there. Make sure you have the right one. It wasn't meant to be a total shameless plug for you two ding dongs.
It's all right. We make okay coaches,
Yeah.
right? The biggest thing is we care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is there's a lot that do. And if it feels like you can't find those people, ask.
Yeah.
Like start asking around.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like a job interview and you're the employer.
Well, word of mouth has always been my best salesman. Right there.
Yep.
Someone literally comes up to me and will say, I was just talking to somebody at the gym and they were like, that Ginger over there, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Or people are just watching me work with people.
I was
Or-
going to say, go to a meet, go to
Yeah.
a big meet, watch.
Yeah,
Watch from the side. Like, don't worry about what's going on the platform.
right.
If you're looking for a coach, watch for pick a couple athletes that you know possibly have, if it's a coach you're interested
Right.
in, watch them. Watch how the athletes interact. Watch how they. You can tell. Like I have seen it. I have seen terrible coaching where that athlete leaves defeated, just depleted,
Right.
and there's no
The coach just lets it
camaraderie.
be.
Or coaches that some coaches can't show, like depending on where you're located.
Right.
But when they do, keep an eye on them.
Well, and the best way you can get to know
ask
your
an athlete.
coach. Well, the best way you can get to know your coach before you meet your coach is be a volunteer,
Yep.
be in the back room, and watch all of the asshole coaches that don't give a damn about their athletes.
Right.
And then watch the coaches that are back there for their athletes. And instantly you'll know, I want that coach because he or she looks like they're having fun. They're keeping their athlete on point. Their athlete screwed up, but they, were able to talk to them through it. They got them through it. They're moving on. And even if they took last place, it's not a bad thing. They'd spin it into something good. And I like that. There's your coach.
Yep.
But you wouldn't know because you can't be in the back room. On the platform, of course the coach is going to be cheering. Of course the coach is going to be yelling out cues. Of course the coach is going to be going up to the head table.
That's where they're
and
Insta famous. That's in
Exactly.
the public eye.
That's
it's what they
exactly.
do behind the curtain.
behind closed doors. And that's the only way you're going to find out is if you volunteer and get back in that back room.
Is that a double boom?
Boom.
The Coaches Collaboration Podcast. What do you mean you haven't subscribed yet? What the hell are you waiting for?
Come on, y'all.
The Coaches Collaboration Podcast is brought to you by The Complete Athlete, providing world-class continuing education for fitness trainers, coaches, and gyms. Online at getcomplete.net.